It's 12 noon. We're live on City Line. Hi, I'm Jackie Hall.
And I'm B.T. Bentley. We're excited about having activist Dick Gregory as our special guest today.
Dick Gregory, the humanitarian who travels around the country speaking out against alcohol, nicotine, and other drugs.
Today, Gregory will be talking about his latest efforts to combat world hunger, especially in drought-stricken Africa.
He'll also talk about his new weight loss product that promises safe weight reduction.
10 years after the fact, black workers at Bethlehem Steel are still fighting for their justice. I'm T. Montier, and I'll have that report.
Harold Anthony here, and on today's entertainment page, I'll feature a group whose total record sales to date have topped the 40 million mark. They call themselves the Commodores, and I have their latest video just for you.
We will be talking to one of America's foremost health prophets.
Dick Gregory, live next on City Line.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's City Line. Hope you're going to enjoy our show because it's very special today.
Wow, and look at our audience, and they're so up, and it makes us feel great. Plus, our guest is exciting.
Mr. Dick Gregory, and I can't wait for him to get here because I want to learn a little bit about his diet.
Yes, and he's here right now, and what we'd like to do is to bring him on, Mr. Dick Gregory. Thank you for coming. Yes. We're going to come up now. So happy that you... Yes, come right here and have a seat. Now, we'll have to do something in television land that requires... By the way, BT has already said that he wants to start your diet,
Yes,
so we
I
need to
can't
get
wait.
him started immediately.
I want to be able to fit in my suits next month.
All right, we can do that. The first thing you must do to start your diet is admit the reason that we are overweight.
What reason is that?
Well, most people say, I don't know why I'm gaining weight, I'm not eating nothing.
And that's probably true, isn't it?
Well, I think one of the big problems we find when I was developing the weight loss formula, I tried not to develop a weight loss formula. So I went out and did a research on what is the #1 cause of people gaining weight. And I found out that we crave nutrition. In other words, we eat because we crave nutrition. And so what I decided to put together is a nutrition pack that once the body reaches its level of nutrition, the appetite would automatically cut back. You will fall into what we call the balance of nature. You will drink the amount of water that the body needs, the amount of liquid, we should say. Remember, the body is 97% liquid against 3% solid. That's why fruit would come closest to being the perfect food. And so what happens, once the body, you know, throws off and becomes overweight, a lot of other things start happening. I was very happy to see that for the first time, this government, as a policy, said we should look at overweight as a major killer, as a major disease, as a major sickness. It's the first time this had been said, you know. And knowing when we went in to develop this pack, it was never about weight loss. See, you can lose weight by putting certain drugs in the body, by putting certain combinations together that by the time the body, you know, deals with it, you have what we call a negative balance.
So this is a healthy type of weight reduction.
It's a healthy type, and it's one that also compensates for the attitude of people that want to lose weight. One of the big attitudes are that people will never read the directions and stay on it. They got a dress they want to get into, they got an outfit they want to get into. And so what happens is you drain the protein, the potassium out of the body, and you start getting the heart rhythm. And compensating for that, we compensate for potassium.
I usually find that I can feel when my body is lacking something.
Yeah.
And is it the sort of thing where on your diet, your body will feel that it's being satisfied and you will be able to continue without feeling that need to grab a snack?
Well, remember now, we have two types of needs. You have the physical and you have the mental. You can overcome the mental. The mental is, for instance, if you have an urge for chicken, that's the universal God forces in your body telling you that all the toxin that was put in your body from chicken is leaving now. Okay? If you have an urge for a cigarette, that's those forces telling you that the nicotine that's in the body is on its way out. We take that as a sign of putting more nicotine in, or, oh God, I got this strange urge for some chicken. And I think, you know, what you just said, this need for, I think one of the questions that we've never dealt with in the last couple of months in this country, and we really have to deal with it because we're really talking about life or death. I went to Ethiopia and I looked at starving people, but let's forget about that for a minute. Let's just deal with the facts. There's 2.5 million people that was on the brink of death had it not been for the aid that came from America and the Western world, okay? There's another 6 million people in Ethiopia that's affected by it. You got 155 million people in all of Africa that's affected by the drought and famine, and you have 1.6 billion people that go to bed every night hungry on this planet. Now, the question we have to ask, how come American farmers cannot pay their notes?
Okay, now that's a very good point on which to stop for a commercial break, as you know, in television land. We're going to come back. We invite your questions in by calling us at 481-1313, and we will talk continually with Dick Gregory. Please stay with us. We're back on City Line talking to Dick Gregory, and we'll be talking about his new diet, which is the Dick Gregory Slim Safe Bahamian Diet. We'll discuss that in detail, plus some other issues. But just before that break, you raised a very interesting question in terms of the number of folk who are starving and who are malnourished. And you ended up by asking, why are the American farmers on the brink of bankruptcy?
Yeah, you have 1/3 of all farmers is on the brink of bankruptcy. Another third is having problems. I just started asking for the research of the amount of suicides. I want to check that out. And I got one state came through the other day. In the state of Missouri in 1983, you had 47 suicides, farmers. In 1984, you had 60 suicides. That's just one state. So we see that farmers are having psychological problems because, you know, they know nothing else. From one generation to the next generation to the next generation.
Well, why are they on the brink of bankruptcy? Why is the country allowing this to happen? And even with the bailout, why isn't there a major bailout?
Because let's take an imaginary trip to a supermarket right now. Let's say this supermarket is 6 blocks long. And you can do it any supermarket. You walk in, if you walk in here to your left or to your right, you find the produce, the fresh vegetables. And as you go down the line, you find the frozen food, the orange juice, the dairy products. Mostly every supermarket, the meat is in the back. Okay, now once you get that out the way, row after row after row after row is plastic food. You know, Monsanto Chemical Company decides what we eat, not the farmer.
What do you call plastic foods? The things that are
Chemicals that's made from chemicals. I mean, if you look at corn chips with the barbecue, if you finish that, you could put makeup on with what you had left on your hands.
Is this a concerted effort then?
I think it is. Yeah, I don't think it's an accident at all. I think the people have gotten so far away from being duped into what they're eating that they very seldom eat anything fresh now.
So your whole plan and your whole life is devoted to nutrition and good health and the natural way of doing
That's the only way. Without that, you're going to end up with cancer and high blood pressure and sugar diabetes and the whole thing, and especially black folks with what we call soul food. There's not another garbage diet on the planet. That's just, but soul food can kill more black folks than the Ku Klux Klan. I mean, it's incredible.
And a lot of doctors attribute the percentage over whites and other races of high blood pressure to black men.
Well, it's that and stress. I mean, we're dealing with a white racist system, and I think one of the things that America's going to have to understand that white racist people and a white racist system is two different things. White racist people have never bothered me. It's a white racist system. I can make white racist people like me. I can make them change. You know, a white racist system, you know, have no God, have no conscience, have no heart, and that's where the problem is. And between the diet and that system, you find such a brutal rate, just a fantastic inhuman rate. And then you got black folks that will never contribute to the diet. They say, well, sugar diabetes runs in my family. That's because you eat what your mother ate, she ate what her mother ate, she ate what her mother ate. So you got 7 generations, and when you knock that out, sugar diabetes will leave.
Okay, let's bring our studio audience in. Yes, sir, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Gregory. I have high blood pressure also, and in hearing about your diet, I was having the question is, what would be a safe way to initiate a program of such to help me with my pressure?
Well, a safe way to initiate a program of such is first decide to lose weight, and then decide to cut back the greasy, starchy, you know, foods that we eat, and then take you some periods where you rest, where we deal with stress. One of the interesting things, and I don't say this at you, I say this at the American mentality. You asked a very compassionate question to me just now. But we don't ask questions like that if you're fixing to drink some whiskey, or if you're going to drink some beer. You ask nobody how you initiate, you just drink it. Anybody ever ask nobody no compassion question when they snort coke? They just snort, you know. But when it comes to health, everybody say, go check with your doctor. You check with your doctor when you start smoking cigarettes? You check with your doctor when you drink beer? You check with your doctor. Sugar's the #3 killer on the planet. The #2 cause of white refined sugar. The #2 cause of cancer is salt. The #1 cause of cancer is red animal meat. And nobody checks with the doctor. If you did, the doctor probably be eating all 3 of them. And so what I'm saying is first, listen to your body. That's very important. Listen to your body. Cut back the sugar. The bad part about it is most doctors we go to eat the same way that bad Americans eat and have the same problems. You know, I mean, when the last time you seen an old doctor? You know? and you know, one of the frightening things is the #1 suicide occupation in America is doctors. #2 drug addiction occupation is doctors. And so, you know, something's wrong. Something, you know, somewhere we've gotten way away from health and we got into medicine.
Do we need then to go to talk to nutritionists as opposed to doctors?
First, it's not that many nutritionists you could talk to, and people who call themselves nutritionists are the people that gone through the university and went through that same type of thing to be a nutritionist, to sit in the hospitals and put the whole menu together. What you really have to do is listen to yourself. You see, power is information. And bad power is bad information. And we, the American people, have more bad power than any nation on the planet because the information we have been perverted. You know, I mean, we are really to sit here and believe that this brilliant nation didn't know 20 and 30 years ago that asbestos causes cancer? Okay. So one grade school and one high school after another had asbestos in it, but if you go out into the little rich neighborhoods, they didn't put asbestos in the school, so somebody knew something. Okay. But you listen to yourself, and I think it's very important. Coffee is no good for you. You know, soda pop is no good for you. White refined anything is no good for you. And what you do is cut back. You stop taking it for, you see, it's not nothing you have to stop doing for 12 years before you feel better. And one of the problems we have is we know cigarettes cause cancer. You cannot find a cigarette smoker on the planet,
even the ones that smoke that's crazy that would say smoking cigarettes is healthy.
Okay, we've asked our viewers to call in and talk with you, and there are many, many people who are just waiting to do that. Hi, you're live on City Line and in touch with Dick Gregory. Hello, go ahead, please. Caller, please go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, please go ahead and talk with Dick Gregory.
Mr. Gregory.
Yes. I hear you.
Yeah, you better turn off your TV.
Gregory, what would happen, what is it that's happening when a person beginning with your diet has upset stomach?
Have an upset stomach? Well, I would probably have to know, you know, what else you had. What's your eating habit have been?
Yes.
You might not be taking enough water. One of the things about that diet has so much fiber in it, and it kind of tricks you because you're looking at a powder, and when you mix it with juice, it turns into a liquid, and it's hard to believe how much fiber is in it. So that's why in the directions we suggest that along with taking it with juice, you take 10 to 12 glasses of water a day. And so that could be the reason, or it could just be knocking down other impurities in the system that would cause that. See, to clean out the body is the same thing as washing your clothes. There's a thing called an agitator, and without that agitator, you can't get it clean.
Tell us a little bit about the diet. Can you mix the powder with just about any type of juice?
You can mix it with anything. You can mix it with water. We suggest that, you know, one wouldn't stay on it just that alone longer than 2 weeks, and you come back and you eat. But what I really suggest is people to use fruit, to go into an all-fruit diet. You know, the 3 strongest animals in the jungle, the gorilla, the elephant, the rhinoceros, eats nothing but fruit. And if we get sick today and go to the hospital, your meat-eating friends is not going to send you a basket of steaks. They're not going to send you a basket of vegetables. They're going to send you a basket of fruit. So if fruit is that good for you after you get sick, think what would happen if we ate more while we were well. And so I really suggest that people that get into it eat as much fruit as you can.
So basically your plan purifies the body?
It purifies, cleanses the body out, yeah. And the way you cleanse the body, let me tell you what you could do. And it's kind of sad. You go through grade school, high school, and college, and you never told that 1 teaspoonful of bran 3 times a day, 1 teaspoonful of bran 3 times a day would eliminate 80% of everything we die from, known as death through diseases and sickness. Now, how can something that small, you know, be so important? Because the food we eat today is so over-processed.
But why is it that the government doesn't, I mean, these things are medical findings or scientific findings.
Yeah.
Why is it that the government ignores this sort of thing?
Why do the government ignore the mafia?
Until last week.
And last weekend, the ones they arrested were so old, they'd be dead in 2 more days anyway.
Let's take another call before we go to a break. Hi, you're on City Line Live.
Yes, Mr. Gregory.
Yes.
I'm diabetic. Now, I'd like to know if my your diet is safe for me.
Yes, it's very safe for you. And one of the things as being a diabetic, you have to be very careful about the amount of greasy food you eat, the amount of starchy food you eat, and the amount of sweet pastries and stuff you eat. But more than that, you have to be very, very careful about the stress. You have to find periods where you just stop and don't think about, not even thinking about nothing, and you see that level start changing.
Okay, we're going to continue our discussion. We'll be back in just a minute, so please stay with us and keep calling if you want to talk to Dick Gregory.
afternoon. Topping today's newscap. Today marks the 20th anniversary of the now famous Selma to Montgomery Civil Rights March. The March 3rd, 1964 walk brought an end to vote discrimination throughout America. Today, that same march from Selma to Montgomery is being undertaken by a number of civil rights activists in the South. That march is being led by the Reverend Joseph Lowry of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. It was only 12 years ago when documented widespread discrimination was found to exist in steel industries across the country. A 1973 executive order issued by the Secretary of Labor listed significant changes that needed to take place within the industry. But one decade later, just how effective has that mandate for change been, and how has the workplace improved for minority workers within the steel industry? Joining me now to talk about those changes is David Carroll, an employee of Bethlehem Steel at Sparrows Point and president of the 21st Century Labor Council. Mr. Carroll, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Give us an example of the kind of discrimination that existed, say, at Bethlehem Steel 12 years ago.
Well, the basic kind of discrimination that existed then was job promotion. There wasn't any job promotion for blacks. Blacks were locked into certain areas they couldn't get out of, and the jobs that they had were the dirty jobs, the hard jobs, all of the menial task type of jobs. This is the kind of jobs they had. The restrooms were segregated. They had white toilets, colored toilets. Back then they didn't use the word black, they used colored. And they had colored toilets and white toilets, and the whole neighborhood there, we had a town that was Sparrows Point, Maryland, and that whole town was segregated. The whole thing there was really bad.
Now, how has all of that changed for the better to benefit minority and black workers within the steel industry?
On the latter, the town itself has been demolished because of technological changes. And as far as the workforce is concerned, along with the Secretary of Labor order and certain rewarding parts of the Consent Decree 1, the minority workers like myself have been able to move up and beyond some of the ranges that we were locked into before.
But the group you represent, the 21st Century Labor Council, represents 600 current employees of Bethlehem Steel, I understand, and some 300 retired employees who are still not quite satisfied. You refuse the compensation due you by Bethlehem Steel. You refuse to sign a check, do you, as a result of the difference in pay between white workers and black workers? I understand that white workers were making an average 39 cents an hour more than black workers who were doing the same kinds of jobs. When you got those checks that redressed that particular wrong, you refused to accept that check. Why?
Because the checks themselves reflected only 1.25 cents per hour instead of the 39 cents an hour that the investigative panel from the Labor Department found the company and the union guilty of.
What is the 21st Century Labor Council fighting for, and how effective has your union been in helping to redress the grievances that you still have?
Well, in the beginning, the union was not effective at all. That's why we began to, when we filed suits, we filed suit against Bethlehem Steel and the United Steelworkers of America. The union was not effective at all.
Mr. Carroll, you are currently appealing your case, is that right?
That is correct.
And what do you hope to come out of that?
Well, we hope that we can get it back into district court here, and with the evidence that we have, we can win this case, and we can get it back into this district court. David
Carroll, thank you for joining us this morning. Mr. Carroll is president of the 21st Century Labor Council. In other news, the first annual Maryland Job Fair, sponsored by the NAACP, gets underway today at 1 o'clock at the downtown Omni Hotel. Numerous employers will be on hand screening applicants and reviewing resumes for possible placement within their companies. There is no charge for today's services. And what is the most important factor for getting a job? According to a study by a Minneapolis firm, enthusiasm, not work experience, is the most important quality potential employers look for when screening applicants for their firms. Briefly, in sports, he calls it a dream come true. He is Bruce Smith, the latest NFL player to sign with the Buffalo Bills. We get a report from John Kernan.
This is Rich Stadium in Buffalo, New York, the new home for Bruce Smith for the next few years. His Tex Outland Trophy winner announced his signing with the Bills earlier today.
In Bruce Smith, we feel that we have now with the Buffalo Bills the #1 football player in America, football player, not just defensive end, but the #1 football player available to the National Football League.
So the suspense is finally over. Smith is now the property of the Buffalo Bills. And although they wouldn't discuss contract specifics, it's believed Bruce will make about $2.5 million over the next 4 years.
I'm going to make sure my family is well taken care of, and that's something I'm going to look forward to because it's never happened in our family or our generation before, and I'm just happy that I have the opportunity to do that.
But now that it's all over, is it time for Bruce to sit back and relax?
No, it's time to prepare myself for the upcoming season with the Buffalo Bills, and that's something that I'm going to look forward to and something I'm really happy about.
Something else that made Bruce happy while he was in college was sacking the quarterback. He achieved that mark 46 times in his career, and the Buffalo Bills are betting a lot of money that collegiate success will carry over into the NFL. In Buffalo, New York, John Kernan reporting.
And finally, Donnell Jordan, an outstanding student at Hebville Elementary School, is City Line Student of the Week. Donnell has received numerous awards for his skills and achievements. Among them are the Hebville Reading Club Certificate of Recognition, the Baltimore Police Department Safety Citizenship Award, and a 4-meter Swim Club Certificate of Award. Donnell enjoys playing football and trumpet, but his prime interest is in astronomy. He would like to design and build the largest space station in space. Best wishes to Donnell Jordan, City Line's Student of the Week. And that is today's newscap. I'm T. Montier. More of City Line up next. Have a good afternoon.
Now here's this week's community calendar.
My name is Ella Gordon. I am representing the Little Pearl Jackson Museum. We are sponsoring our first annual Civil Rights Baby Contest. We will meet with all mothers and babies to take pictures on Saturday, March the 9th from 2 to 4 p.m. If you and your baby are interested in participating, please call 523-1208.
If your group or organization would like to announce an event, please write us in care of City Line, WJZ TV, Television Hill, Baltimore, Maryland 21211, or call us for further information at 466-0013 between the hours of 9 and 5.
We're back live on City Line to continue our discussion with Mr. Dick Gregory. We were talking earlier about the weight loss reduction diet, but you've spent a lot of money and energy developing a diet that will help address the famine in Africa. Could you tell us a little
Yeah,
about
matter of fact, the weight loss was just a spinoff. For about 15 years, I've been really looking at hunger and trying to find out, you know, how you can really get a handle on it. And then when you realize hunger is so political, you know, if you look at 90% of all the wars and revolutions that we've had since World War II, they've been over food and hunger. And one of the things that I felt, if we could move it out the hands of the politician and take it to the hands of the scientists, and in order to do that, you have to have fantastic documents. And one of the things, in testing it in 1976, I ran from Los Angeles to New York City, averaging 50 miles a day for 71 days, eating no solid food, just taking fruit juice and this formula that we had put together. Once I realized, you know, and I was satisfied with it, then how do you get the scientific documents? We went into Flint Goodrich Hospital in New Orleans and brought in 2 top researchers, and we paid them $1,000 a day for 70 days and gave them access to $11,000 a week to surround themselves with a type of research equipment that they could study my body for 70 days on nothing but water. Now, first let me say this. I have such a respect for God. I would never do anything that would hurt my body, you know, and in no shape, form, or fashion. You know, if the building caught on fire, the kid gonna get out of here. I'll take you with me if you don't offer no resistance. But if you really want to stay, you know, stay, right? I teach all my children, you know, how to have fire drills at home because my wife and I live upstairs, and I don't think I'm going down in the middle of a fire. So y'all learn how to get out that window. So anyway, I say that to say, you know, it's just something I didn't just go into and say, oh, at the expense of my life. I knew how safe and prayers, in fact, the doctors didn't know. What we learned in those 70 days, we were able to come up with a document that never existed before on this planet, is they were able to study my body through the urine, through the blood test, through saliva, through heartbeat and what have you. And we come out with a masterful document on hunger. One of the things we found out, that after the 13th day on water, the body, you know, goes through such a trauma, it starts producing a morphine that's 150 times more potent than commercial morphine. So when you see the pictures from Ethiopians, see them looking passive and almost smile and peaceful, that's that drug that's running through the body. You keep hearing them talking about the amount of blindness, and they say it's coming from the flies. It's not coming from the flies. It's coming from the drug system, eats up what little bit of vitamin A you have left, which causes night blindness, which causes blindness.
So what you're going to do then is take this research, and it's been turned into a health plan.
Well, what we
it'll
did,
be tried in Ethiopia.
You see, what I had to do was convince the scientists. So what we did, after that 70 days, I drank the solution that morning on the 71st day and walked and ran from New Orleans to Baton Rouge. All right. Now they thoroughly convinced that, one, the body do not need food as much as it needs nutrition. Had I ate after those 70 days, I would have died. We were able to take that research to Ethiopia, to show it to the doctors, to work with the head of nutrition at Tulane Medical School and the dean of the medical school in Ethiopia. They are using that nutrition formula, not the weight loss formula,
but the
nutrition formula in the hospital, what they call a protocol. The formula that they're using, you know, the world accepts that hungry people need to be fed 2,000 calories a day. You can go to a tavern and get 2,000 calories a day. What we need to do is change it to nutrition. The formula they were using in the hospital costs $3.99 per child. The formula that I put in the hospital costs 45 cents per child per day. We waiting on the protocol to come back through now.
Okay. Let's bring our audience back in. Yes, ma'am, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Gregory, I'd like to know, how does your new Bahamian diet compare in any ways to the information in your book, Cooking with Mother Nature?
It don't, because if you listen to the book, you wouldn't have to take the diet. If knowing what I know now and knowing what's in the book, the only way I would take the diet is just for nutrition purposes, and that means I would just take it, you know, half a scoop twice a day. But if you know, we can lose all the weight we want to lose by eating enough fruit, eating enough, you know, fresh food. One of the problems we have is once you cook your food, you destroy the nutrient content. Once you freeze it, anything that goes above 119 degrees Fahrenheit, you destroy the nutrient value in it, and anything that goes below 32, you've frozen it, you destroy it. And so what we're really eating is newspaper with a little vitamins in it.
Thank you for the question. Let's do a lightning round. I think that we would be remiss if we didn't try to get some information from the Dick Gregory about a series of topics. And I'm going to throw out some subjects to you, and I'd like for you to respond quickly. The state of Black America today.
Is probably in the worst shape it's ever been in, but for the first time, we can't blame white America or a racist system. What we did in the 60s, and I just thank God I was part of that movement, is with the leadership that King presented, and that was a new type of revolution, a revolution without anger, without hate. We hit that door and knocked it open in a way they can never close it again, and the only thing comes through that door is light. And for some reason, black folks haven't opened that door up all the way.
Okay, black leadership today.
It's probably stronger than it's ever been, because for the first time, we don't have to look into the newspaper to determine who our leaders are. And for the first time, the local leadership is being recognized, which before we kept looking for national and overlooked the local.
South Africa.
South Africa will bow when black folks in America decide to use our economic sophistication and punish the companies. 28% of all Cadillacs was bought by us. We spent $1.5 billion on Coca-Cola. We handled $190 billion cash last year. We are the third world. If we was a separate nation, we'd be the 5th or 6th most economically powerful nation on the planet. And when we say to these companies here, we're going to punish you, they'll get out of South Africa. And when that happens, South Africa behaves.
What about U.S. foreign policy in general?
It's never been good. U.S. foreign policy have always been according to the money. You know, our foreign policy have never been handled by honest, ethical men. We've never had nobody in foreign policy that deals with integrity or rights of human beings. Our foreign policy is with a gun and nothing else.
4 additional years under Ronald Reagan.
It makes no difference. This country was in trouble. You know, one of the things that we hear blacks in this country would almost lead people to believe that we had everything we wanted. Then Reagan got in and we lost it, you know. And probably the most interesting thing about Reagan, I don't know how many people realize it, Reagan spelled backwards is nigger. You know, I mean, if you actually write that word backwards, you get nigger. So we got a backward nigger in the White House for 4 more years. So, you know. But I think my problem with Ronald Reagan is that he has a lack of compassion for poor, for the downtrodden, just his voice. He's never reached down and said, we have a problem now, and here's how we're going to deal with it. Anytime you slash veterans, and I take veterans because these was, you know, the ones that went to Canada, we said they was faggots, and the ones that went to war, they was he-men. And now the he-men have sit back and watched the veterans pension and everything be cut, and watched defense get a bonus of $34 billion, and we haven't heard from them veterans. So you kind of wonder who the he-men really are. And so, you know, I just think, you know, if we had the proper leadership going through this period of have to readjust, it would work.
What about the ability or the fact that the black children today, how are they going to be made to remember the civil rights struggles and the Martin Luther Kings?
It's going to be very difficult without that sense of integrity in the black community. Until black folks decide that we have to change the system, not just go to college so I can get an education and be part of the system. And it just don't affect black. I was shocked to find out that white women didn't get the right to vote in America till 1919. I was shocked to find out last year that a white woman with a master's degree make 56% less than a white boy that dropped out of high school. And so, you know, this is right across the board, we're going to have to make changes. And we at the low end of the totem pole because we tolerated it more than anybody else. And when we stop tolerating it, join the NAACP, the Urban League, SCLC, things will change.
I want to ask you, too, we're going to take a break right now, but when we come back, I want to talk to you about Frank Wills.
Okay.
We'll be back in just a moment and continue our discussion with Dick Gregory.
Transportation for City Line guests is provided by Total Picture Tours, featuring bus, boat, helicopter, and limousine services.
We're continuing our discussion with Dick Gregory, and I wanted to get into Frank, just to get some feeling on where Frank Wills is now and how you've involved him in the project for the Bahamian diet.
Well, I wanted to just say thanks. I mean, here's a man that probably brought down the strongest president in the history of this country because of the mandate that Nixon had. And we claim we're a country that believe in law and order and people, you know, sticking up for what's right, and yet and still it looked like all he was doing was his job. I mean, he didn't even run in as a concerned citizen. He was just doing his job, and looked like he was being punished for it. And I was very fortunate. The contract I signed for the Bahamian diet was worth over $100 million to me, and I really decided I would use this money. You know, people write me and call me about, I wouldn't give no money to nobody that's not involved in civil rights, you know, including my family. And I just felt that Frank Wells was one of the finest ways I could say thanks. Because to take that kind of money and put it in the bank, that ain't nothing but chump change when you put it in the Chase Manhattan Bank. But if you take that money and use it to glorify God, to glorify the beauty of what this planet should be about, it'll work. And I couldn't think of a better way of saying to Frank Wells, you know.
And of course, Frank Wells, for those who might not remember, because he was basically not covered in the media. Frank Wells was a gentleman who found the tape in the Watergate that triggered the
on the door. They taped the door, and he found it. Matter of fact, he found it and took it off. They had to retape it again. So I really got to ask him about that one day.
Okay, let's take another question from our studio audience.
Mr. Gregory, I'd like to know how we can convince our young people to eat properly when in neighborhoods where there are no grocery stores, there are stores that promote alcohol and junk food, and on television they're bombarded by these kinds of commercials.
Yeah, well, one, you either have to get your television out your house, or we're going to have to spend more time saying, you know, this is what's right and this is wrong. There's a lot of research coming out now. We know now that 98% of your hardcore, repeat violent criminals that's in jail eat a minimum of 465 pounds of sugar a year. So we can't associate sugar with violence. We know now that to be strong and healthy, you have to eat right, and you can't eat the garbage. One of the problems is ourselves. I mean, what we call eating right is really not right. So, you know, once we lay that on the children, I mean, milk and dairy products is one of the worst things you can put in the body. You know, I mean, the whole ice cream, the whole thing, and yet we've been led to believe that one of the finest ways of getting calcium is through milk, and one of the finest ways of getting calcium would be through raw vegetables. And the most important ingredients out of milk is called casein. It builds a bone structure to carry the body's weight, and cow's milk has 300 times more casein than mother's milk because cow's milk has to build a bone structure to carry a ton plus, and it has to build a calf double the weight within 2 to 4 weeks, where mother's milk double the weight of the baby within 8 to 9 months. And the number one ingredients they make out of casein, which comes out of milk, is glue. And one day we got to ask the question, is it an accident that the biggest milk company in the world, Borden's Milk, just happened to make Elmer's glue?
Thank you very much for your question. You know, that sort of thing is really what, at least in my mind, puts a lot of the pressure on the parent. The parent has to do a lot of deciphering.
Who's not qualified? Who's really not qualified? I mean, a lot of pressure is on the parent that's not qualified, so they yell. For instance, the number 1 and number 2 drug addiction in this country. Number 1 is caffeine, number 2 is nicotine. Okay? Not cocaine and reefers and wine and beer. And so, you know, you get old folks that wonder about these youngsters smoking reefers. Well, hide your coffee for a week. I mean, it's a country that controls the masses through drug addiction. Until Ralph Nader and those consumer folks, you know, really got out here and worked, Americans didn't know how much caffeine or if there was any caffeine in soda pop. And yet we raise children with soda pop.
But, you know, I'm finding a kind of, I guess, controversy or dilemma here, because on one hand you're saying that the farmers are on the verge of bankruptcy and can't do what they're supposed to be doing, which is raising food and so forth. And on the other hand, you're telling us to, you know, not to eat this, don't eat this, eat fresh this and fresh that. Where are we going to get it from if the farmers aren't raising it? If we can't raise it, we're not
Well,
raising
you might
it
not get it,
ourselves.
so then we start raising cancer. That's why the #3 cause of death in young folks now is cancer. That's unheard of when I was a child.
What do we do? What do you tell folk to do? Do we buy the Bahamian diet, or
no, not necessarily. You can go and get fresh fruit, fresh vegetables where there's a demand for it. Then it starts increasing. You know, for instance, we've been saying for years that a lot of people's getting hair on their legs in the black community. Very seldom you saw women with hair on their legs. And I've been doing articles that coming out the hormones of them chickens. And about 3 months ago, one of the major networks did a shocking story out of Puerto Rico where them 17-month-old girls was developing breasts and having menstruation periods. The whole food industry denied it, but when they took them off of all poultry, all dairy products, all meat, all chicken, it left. And I mean, it's criminal out here what they do in the food.
Gregory, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
A wealth of information as always.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
God bless you.
Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back in just a minute. Please stay with us.
Hi, I'm Harold Anthony, and on today's edition of the Entertainment Page, my featured group is one that's considered to be internationally popular, and they have the credentials to prove it. The Commodores have to their credit 22 gold records, 6 platinum, 2 double platinum, and 3 triple platinum LPs. They've topped every kind of music chart in the country and have gained recognition throughout the world as leaders in their particular field. The band, which was originally formed in Tuskegee, Alabama in 1969, is now enjoying a long-standing success that eludes most artists. One of the major reasons for their longevity is their incredibly diverse style. From pop to country, jazz to disco, there are few groups who can claim mastery of such a broad spectrum. Maybe it's because all 5 members pool their resources as writers, musicians, and vocalists. Or maybe it's because of the exceptional marketing and organization of the group. Well, whatever the reason, one thing is clear. The Commodores are standing firmly at the helm, and they've set sail for what may be one of the most successful Commodores with their latest smash hit called Night Shift. As we turn our attention to the Hollywood scene, we find that the incredibly hot Eddie Murphy finds himself once again in a compromising position. It seems that this talented young comic has been drawing a lot of flack from the gay community as a result of his comments concerning gays and their susceptibility to acquired immune deficiency, or AIDS. Well, Mr. Murphy has made an attempt to show that he's not completely insensitive. He has formally apologized to the group by offering them a big wet kiss. Obviously, it'll take more than a big wet kiss to settle a legal dispute between a couple of photographers and Prince's 2 bodyguards. It seems that one of the photographers was assaulted by the men paid to protect his royal badness after the paparazzi took a few unauthorized pictures of the superstar as he left a Hollywood night spot. Both bodyguards were promptly arrested by, guess who? You've got it, Beverly Hills Cops. On the local scene, we find that a 20-year reunion is being planned to benefit charities. The Addison MacArthur Foundation for Underprivileged Children and Webb Charities will purchase $1,000 worth of Christmas toys for exceedingly poor children and help fire distress victims. The reunion will be held Sunday, March 10th at the Forum Caterers, 4210 Primrose Avenue. There'll be lots of food, refreshments, door prizes, Las Vegas games, and oldies but goodies music, and also the original Billy Anderson combo. For additional information, you can call 243-9400. And with that, I'll have to wrap up this edition of the entertainment page. I'm Harold Anthony, hoping that you all have a great week.
Thank you, Harold, and thanks once again to Dick Gregory, a fantastic guest. We're a little bit short on time, but we do want to tell you that next week you're going to have a very fun time.
Indeed. I'm going to do a solo act next week, and I'm going to miss you too. But we're going to have Ronnie, Eloise, and Deborah Laws on next week, that musical family.
That's right, and if you want to get tickets, you better call very quickly, 481-1313, and reserve your tickets now.
Yeah, we'll be talking about their musical versatility next week and what makes them work.
They're an exciting group.
Yeah.
An exciting group. Well, we've had a great time as always, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in a little while.
Yes, enjoy your weekend next weekend.
Do the same.
Yeah.
You take a good one. We'll see you soon. I'm BT.
I'm Jackie Hawk. Have a good one.